2, verse 7, and Isaiah chapter 53, verse 3. These are two passages I'm going to combine for my main passage. And the title is, There's No Room for Him in the Inn. And we know the story that Joseph and Mary went to Bethlehem because the Caesar had commanded them to go and take a census. And Jerusalem was very full at the time because everybody had to go back to their city of birth. And Mary, being very much pregnant at the time, was going to give birth while there. And Luke chapter 2, verse 7 says, Then she gave birth to the firstborn son, and she wrapped him tightly in cloth and laid him in a manger, because there were no guest rooms available for them. Or as the King James Version puts it, there was no room for them at the inn. And it's very important because we need to understand that when Jesus came into this earth, came down to this earth, there was no room for him in the inn. There was no room for him inside the city. There was no room. They couldn't make special rooms for the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords. And ladies and gentlemen, the sad truth is, it has not changed. It has not changed. If you flip with me to Isaiah chapter 53. In reading verse 3, it says, He was despised and rejected by men, a man of suffering who knew what sickness was. He was like someone people turned away from. He was despised, and we didn't value him. Our Lord Jesus Christ came, and the day he came, there was no room for him in the lives of the people of Jerusalem. He had to go and be born in a manger. There was no room for him. And Isaiah predicted that his whole life would be about being despised by everyone. No one had room for Jesus while Jesus lived on this earth. He says that the birds have nests, but the Son of Man has nowhere to lay his head. There was no room for Jesus in anybody's life. There was no room for Jesus for people to open up the doors and welcome him in. There was no room for Jesus. He was born in a smelly stable. When he died, they wouldn't even let him die inside Jerusalem. They sent him outside of Jerusalem to a garbage dump to be crucified between two thieves. Here was a man who was born naked, and he died naked. There was no room for Jesus in people's life. Now, I want us to understand this idea because sometimes we forget, or we just don't have that concept that people just don't have room for Jesus in their life. They don't have room for Jesus in their life. In America, there's more apathy and hatred towards Jesus than there's ever been in the history of the United States. In 2024, there is no room for Jesus. Now, listen, yesterday was an exciting day. If you're a Georgia fan, man, we had room for Georgia Bulldogs yesterday, didn't we? At 11:30 my time, 12:30 your all's time, Jeff Lynn is texting me about the Kentucky game that's going on in Seattle, Washington. Kentucky won by 1 point, by the way. We have room for a lot of stuff in our life, but what I'm trying to say is a lot of times we don't have room for Jesus. We don't make room for Jesus. We allow everything else around us to occupy our time. We allow everything else to get our attention, and where we fail is we don't have room for Jesus. We just don't make room for Jesus. And so this morning, I want us to examine where we don't make room for Jesus at. Number one, listen to me. There's no room for Jesus in the world's government. There's no room for Jesus in the world's government. The world government, they want to reject it. In the United States, we're very careful about making sure we don't allow God or Jesus to come into our government. They want to say, well, it's unconstitutional. I have read the Constitution. It's not in there. There's nowhere in the Constitution that says we can't have religion in the government. Now, there is part of the first Constitution that says Congress will make no law concerning the establishment of religion, but it doesn't say anything about not having God in the government. And so we are very careful not to allow God Jesus to come in our government, because there's no room for Jesus in government. They don't want him there. They want to do everything they can to keep him out of there. They will tolerate Jesus, but they don't want Jesus. There's no room for him in the government, in the government life. But y'all, in reality,